The Islamic State occupying Ramadi. Our commander-in-chief, meanwhile, worrying about what he sees as the great national security threat, global warming. Joining us tonight is Congressman Ron DeSantis, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, also the Judiciary and Oversight Committees, also a Naval Reserve officer who served on active duty in Iraq, and in so doing won a Bronze Star for his meritorious service. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Hi, Lou. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the President talking to the Coast Guard Academy about climate change as a national security threat when the Islamic State is running across Syria and Iraq.
Well, exactly right, Lou. And so I happened to be in Ramadi for a time when I was in Iraq, and it was a very, very difficult place for our forces for a long time. We lost a lot of really brave young men there. But ultimately, al-Qaeda in Iraq was defeated in Ramadi, and by the time we redeployed in 2008, the violence had all but stopped. There was no more al-Qaeda in Ramadi, and so now to see ISIS take over it, it pains my heart to think of the sacrifices that were made by our men and women in uniform. And to be talking about climate change as a greater national security threat than ISIS, they're not only beheading people in the Middle East, rampaging across the Middle East, but they have a propaganda network that, as we've seen, can inspire people here in our own country to wage jihad against the American people. And so it's disappointing. And then also, you mentioned Iran and the deal that he's cutting with Iran that is sparking an arms race in the Middle East, and also really driving more Sunni Arabs, I believe, to ISIS, because Obama's policy is essentially to green light Iran as the leading power in the Middle East. So those Sunni Arabs in places like Al-Anbar province, if they think the choice is between Shiite-backed Iranian forces or ISIS, unfortunately, many of them will choose ISIS as what they regard to be the lesser of two evils.
And the Sunni-led Islamic State. Let's turn to the other very quickly. I mean, this is a president when he talks about global climate change, and no one is in any way suggesting it isn't an important issue, but it's not immediate. It is not one that can be dealt with in the short term, certainly. While this president has avoided any reaction to Russian aggression in Eastern Europe, he has avoided any reaction to Chinese expansionism in the South China Sea, or its intervention into South and Central America in our hemisphere.
No, that's right. And Ukraine is a great example. What Vladimir Putin sees is he sees weakness. He sees a president that's not serious, and so he knows he can get away with things there. And I think if we had a policy which was firm, which armed Ukraine with defensive and offensive weapons so that they could defend themselves, I think Putin would make different calculations. And so I think Obama's policy of weakness is actually making a larger conflict more likely. And I think if you had a Reagan-esque policy of strength, I think you'd see people like Putin not want to mess with us.
Congressman Ron DeSantis, always good to have you on the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.